What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bob's Garage. Today we're going to be troubleshooting that pesky air conditioning system. Alright, welcome back. So, today what we're going to be working on is we're going to check the pressure on the low and high side AC lines on the car and make sure that there's some refrigerant in the actual lines here. So, today I got my Harbor Freight AC manifold gauges, and we're gonna hook those up to the lines and see what Okay, so a couple other things that I did. If you have watched my previous episode, I replaced the cabin air temperature sensor that's underneath this the cabin air filter. So watch my previous episode if you want some more info on how to do that. But basically the cabin air filter is underneath here, and then the air temperature sensor is like right around here inside that box. So I keep calling it the wrong name. I think it's the G98 sensor. Don't sue me if I'm wrong. Okay, so here's our AC lines right here and here. And this one feels a little bit cold. So I guess that's a good sign. I'm hoping this can be an easy fix. Now, I've been having, for those of you that aren't caught up, I've been having air conditioning problems ever since I did my downpipe install. When I did my downpipe install, I dropped the subframe. So when I did the subframe drop, I disconnected all the wiring. So I disconnected all this. I disconnected all the wires that are underneath the coolant tank. I disconnected all of these guys over here. So I was thinking or hoping that maybe I missed reconnecting something, and that's why it's not working. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I got to figure out why it's not quite working. It sounds like the compressor's kicking on. I don't have any other VAG error codes or DTCs. I was thinking maybe, so this is behind the passenger side headlight, but this is the AC condenser here. I was thinking that maybe I'd never plug that in, but it's not going to show up on camera. But there's the connector that's all the way back there. It looks fine. So as long as there's refrigerant, maybe I'll pull this passenger headlight and double check that connector. So that's where we're at. Here's my Harbor Freight AC manifold gauge set, and we're gonna make sure that this is closed. So it's closed, you can see there, and we'll close the high side. Now these are this is the set. I believe this is the fill line. So it comes with the valve connect for the high side. Everything's color coordinated, and then this is the one for the low side. Now these lines are the valve fittings are different sizes. So this one's bigger than the low here, so you can't mess it up. So we'll just hook the low up to the small guy, and then this will be for the high. And so everything's kind of set up so you can't really mess it up. So I'm going to connect this on, and then we are going to see what this has to say. Alright, so what we're going to do first is get these gauges all set up, ready to rock. So these all just screw on hand tight, and this is, I already put the low valve on. This is the high pressure valve. Okay. Alright, so we're going to make sure everything's closed. So this one's set to closed. This is our low. This one's set to closed. And then we already mentioned it, but these are both set to closed. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is connect up this middle line here, this yellow line. This is typically used to fill the system, but because we're just checking the pressures, we're going to set up a loop fashion where that way we don't lose any freon. So we just have a loop of hose here, and we're just going to connect this up so it basically cycles the gas back into the valves. Okay. So that goes like that. This goes like this. Now we shouldn't lose any refrigerant while we're checking the pressures. So, okay. Alright, closed, closed. Okay, so we'll zoom out. I'll show you how to hook it up. Okay, so we're going to take these two lines here, and as I mentioned before, they're keyed so they can only go one on one of these valve fittings here. So let's go with the low first. Like I said, make sure your valve is closed. And this is kind of like a you pull it and then pop it on there, and hopefully this will fit with this air box in the way. Okay, and it did. Alright, so we're tight, everything's set to closed. And so next up, what we're going to do is we're going to start the car up. We're going to turn the AC on. We're going to let it run for just a few minutes, let all the pressures equalize, stabilize, and all that. And then at which point then we'll start cracking open these valves. So I'll start the car up, let it run for a few minutes, and then I'll open each of these, which will send the pressures up into the gauges. And then after that, I will open up the gauges on the actual, or the valves on the actual gauges. Okay, I'm not sure how good the audio is, but I also made sure that this fan kicked on. This fan is running. You can hear the engine kick down, so it sounds like the compressor is actually engaging and kicking on. It's just not blowing cold. Alright, we'll come back in just a couple minutes. Alright, and we're back. Okay, so we're going to open up these valves first. So those valves are open. Now we're gonna open these guys up. This one was already partially open. Okay, so we're reading about 29 psi. We'll open this the rest of the way here. Okay, so just close this one and open the high. The high is reading about, what is that? 85 or 90 or so. Alright guys, so there you have it. I'm not sure how well that was in focus with the camera, but I did take a picture with my phone, which I'll overlay the video. Now, just looking at a generic chart for R134A, it says if the ambient temperature is about 70 degrees, which I would say it probably is, it says the low side gauge should be 35 to 40 psi, and the high side gauge should be 145 to 160 psi. So, I believe that means I need some more refrigerant. So, The low side was 28 or so psi. It wasn't even 30. The high side was 100 or 105. So it looks like we need a little bit of refrigerant. I'm not sure if I should go and go to like AutoZone and pick up one of those little cans, or take it to my mechanic. So I'm not licensed. I don't have Freon. So that's something that I can't do myself. You can't just go out and buy that. You can't go out and buy a tank to fill it with the manifold gauges. So typically the right way to do it is to evacuate the whole system under vacuum, and then draw in new coolant or Freon from a bigger tank or whatever. So maybe I'll give my mechanic a call and ask him if buying one of those little cans from the store is good, or he might just say come on by and he'll do it for me. So I'm hoping that's it. It sounds like the compressor is kicking on. I don't have any other errors or alerts, so I think it's just that there's a little bit of coolant where the system's still running and kicking on, and but there's not enough to actually cool down the air. So because these cars have safeguards and all that in place, where it won't run the AC if the pressure's too high or if the pressure's too low. So I'd like to get this topped off. I did notice after a couple minutes or so that the pressure gauge has dropped. So I think the compressor was turning off, and I could be wrong, but when I was playing in the VAG settings yesterday, I was reading the measuring blocks, and there was a field that or a parameter that was called I believe it was called compressor runtime, and I think it was only like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, and it looked like it was counting down. So I don't know if that only allows the compressor to run for 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes at a time, and then it shuts off for so long, and then it kicks back on, and it kind of goes in back and forth, on and off, so it doesn't burn out the compressor. So maybe someone smarter than me can chime in and let me know if that's true or not. So I'm gonna give my mechanic a call, see what he says about this refrigerant, topping it off, and I'll report back to you guys. So thanks again for tuning in. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, it's hot. It's a very hot, humid day here in the Midwest, and I'd like to get my air conditioning running, especially since it was working fine before I tore everything apart. So stay tuned for more.